So we're going to launch right into the Mid-Atlantic Partner Panel, starting with Pam Mason from Virginia Institute of Marine Science. Pam, you can go ahead and take control of the screen and put your slides up while I introduce you. Pam is a senior research scientist at the Center for Coastal Resources Management, Virginia Institute of Marine Science, William and Mary. She is lead on provision of advisory service at the center, and her research is focusing on natural and nature-based feature co-benefits and the integration of shoreline decision-making in support of coastal community resilience. Pam, you'll hear a little tone as your 2-minute warning, and take it away.
Okay, so I'm having an issue with getting my presenting. It's showing your slides, not mine.
Kathy, why don't you unshare and see if that does the trick for Pam?
Okay, let me try to do that.
Switch presenters so the next person can configure. Right, let's see if that works.
And while we're doing this, a reminder to all attendees, if you're not a speaker, if you could remain off camera so we can reserve bandwidth.
Okay, so I don't have a take control button on the top of mine right now.
You should have a share button at the top or open share tray.
Oh, there it is. It wasn't take control. Thank you. All right, let me see if I can get my windows. There we go. Okay, does everybody see a thing?
It's coming.
Yes.
Perfect. You just need to put it in presentation mode and you're all set.
Oh, but I need to go back to the beginning. All right.
Perfect.
All right.
Looks great.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience with that. You know, it's always a challenge. Uh-oh, where'd it go? Hold on a minute. There we go.
I still see it.
So, thank you. So I want to talk today a little bit about some projects that we're working on in the Center for Coastal Resources Management. And originally, it's funny because I wasn't sure we were going to explore the concept of tidal resilience or wetland resilience. So I had a couple slides that I just removed after the nice conversations we had yesterday and the review that we just did. So instead, I just jumped right to this slide. And so we do a lot of work at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science Center for Coastal Resources Management in and around wetlands resilience. We've been working in this space a long time. We used to call it wetland sustainability. Before that, we called it wetland functions and values. Whatever we called it, it's still basically the same thing. And where we work in the space we work in, we engage in multiple approaches to supporting wetland resilience, which is we work in a quasi-legal framework. So we are in Virginia. Virginia is a partner in the Chesapeake Bay program. We have this total maximum daily load, which is a driver for wetlands projects, tidal and non-tidal wetlands projects both, because they're approved VMPs. And I think you'll hear more about that. We do projects that support decision makers for protection and preservation of wetlands, planning around wetlands, projects at all scales, incentives, and we do a lot of work on living shorelines and promoting the preferred approaches to shoreline management. And we develop a whole lot of technical assistance decision support tools. So I was one of those people in our last Mentimeter that said, yes, we do a lot of translating science to actual decision making. So I'm going to talk about just two pieces of some of our work today. One is both of these projects were focused on basically trying to protect existing wetlands and identify places for wetland restoration. In one space, we were talking about wetlands restoration for co-benefits, and in the other space, it's specifically identifying targets for living shorelines, which is erosion control and shoreline management. So the first project I'm going to review is, is a map existing natural nature-based features that provide flooding resilience for buildings in coastal Virginia. So basically the idea here was to develop a project that helped promote the use of natural nature-based features for flood resilience, but two other co-benefits that I'll add on to in a minute. And I just wanted to show this slide. So we did all of coastal Virginia, which is essentially the area that's east of 95 in Virginia. And we mapped over 350,000 natural nature-based features using land cover. And we also then identified those features. And in the little boxes over here, you can see the things that fall into this particular talk today, which is coastal wetlands related. How did we then link the benefits of our natural nature-based features, coastal wetlands in this case, to the buildings? So we developed this process called Inundation Pathways, and it's an elevation-based tool using a geospatial analytical approach in GIS. And basically what it does is it allows us to develop these links so we can see where tidal flooding water connects to buildings, and we know that the water will flow along those pathways. We also understand that it won't flow along a line, that water tends to flood over surface. But what this does is it shows the lowest elevation connection between tidal flooding and a building, which allows us to identify where there are natural nature-based features or where there could be natural nature-based features. Sorry, I don't know why that advanced, put into place. And so this is just a slide that shows that analytical approach. And in this case, you can see we have tidal marsh in this sort of blue-green, wooded areas. I don't know why it shows red in the color ramp. I got a mix up there, but that's the dark green. You can see the buildings, they're inundation pathways. You might note that sometimes inundation low areas are behind a building. People always tend to think that, you know, you're looking towards the water, but in this case, this building right here has inundation flows that come from multiple directions. So that allows us to see both where natural nature-based features can protect what buildings they're protecting, and conversely, which buildings have benefits from natural nature-based features. So we did this as a ranked score, and that meant that we did a approach where we had 4 different criteria. So one was flooding mitigation services. Then how many buildings does the natural nature-based feature benefit? Are there critical communities? Are any of those buildings identified as shelters, hospitals, public service facilities, police, fire stations? And then can they take advantage of existing programmatic incentives? And this that allowed us to develop a table, and we rank based, and we did a simple numerical. We binned into 3 bins. And you can see that going through each one of these, this is our flood mitigation service. We basically looked at opportunity and capacity. Capacity was the in situ criteria of the wetland, like we used permeability, surface roughness, and vegetative cover. So the strength of the vegetative stems. And then we used opportunity, which was based on the relative elevation of the natural nature-based feature within our elevation frame. Our study was focused on all of Virginia below a 10-foot elevation area. So we weren't using all of the landscape of coastal Virginia. We were limiting it to the area that's most likely to be at risk for flood or future sea level rise scenarios, more likely to be exposed to regular tidal flooding. The next feature we did, then we did the 2 number building features, which was a really simple. We did a statistical ramp and determined that we wanted to just do a simple ranking if the natural nature-based feature provided benefits to no buildings, 1 building or 2 buildings, and then critical benefit was just an off-on, yes or no. So the last one that was the most complicated was we added 2 co-benefits. One was community rankings, community rating system. This is where basically if you have protected open space in your special flood hazard management area, you can get credit for having that open space, and the local government then can work in the CRS system to get a ranking, and that ranking can be used to decrease the cost of flood insurance for the constituents that live in that locality. The second co-benefit we focused on, since we are in the Chesapeake Bay program and we have approved TMDL BMPs for tidal and non-tidal wetlands, we basically just presumed that our features that have vegetation will provide some level of water quality benefit and potential credit for load reductions. So we rank based this and then mapped it. And you can see on this map, I'm showing just a small piece of what is Hampton, Virginia. And we put this in a mapper called Adapt Virginia, and you can select a unit. In this case, I've selected this bright pink unit here, which happens to be a tidal marsh. And the pop-up information will tell you all the rank-based information that goes into there. And the idea is that this allows local governments to identify where existing natural features, and since today we're focusing on tidal marshes, tidal, non-tidal marshes provide benefits to the community. And this can inform situations like site plan review, conservation planning and targeting, so that those folks can use this information to preserve and protect their tidal wetlands. Now, we also have a Tidal Wetlands Act, so arguably wetlands are already protected in state law, in federal law, but we also know the impacts occur routinely to tidal marsh for all kinds of things, development, shoreline protection, navigation, whatnot. So this is supposed to be usable for the localities to actually see where some of their benefits are coming from. This is a larger view of the same site, and this shows another element of this natural nature-based feature information that we're serving. So in this case, I've highlighted a feature along the coast. This is still Hampton, Virginia. This happens to be a beach. We've also developed fact sheets, and so you can actually go to our website and you will see a fact sheet that tells you a little bit about the ecosystem services provided by that natural feature. Again, we're focusing on the benefits of flood benefits, TMDL, and CRS credits. And again, you can see the rank based for this one. It ends up being ranked most benefits. It's medium for mitigating coastal flooding, high rank for buildings protected, low rank for critical facilities, and medium rank for incentives because the beach is not considered to provide the water quality benefits that the other vegetative practices do. So the next piece of the natural nature-based features was we flipped from identifying rank-based for protecting and preserving existing features to identifying targets for new features. So this is for implementation of new natural nature-based features. And we did this is a view of Hampton River. And you can see if I selected any one of these bullseyes. So the bullseyes are 100 feet. They're just targets that are 100-foot diameter circles. Within that circle, we identify several pieces of information. We tell you what the land cover is that could be converted from a less beneficial to a more beneficial cover. So in this case, this target, it has impervious and turf grass. So the removal of that impervious or the conversion of that turf grass into a natural or nature-based feature would provide resilience benefits to this area of Hampton. We tell you what's adjacent. So we give you an idea of a target for your restoration effort. So adjacent to these features, in this case, is tidal marsh and upland wooded area. So those are likely to be successful because they are in the vicinity. And then we tell you also we use the shoreline because we have a shoreline management model that we've run for Virginia and several other coastal localities in Maryland and portions of Florida and Texas. And in this case, this particular one, because it's a highly dense developed area, it says seek expert advice. In less developed areas, the shoreline management model would provide recommendations relevant to and with a focus on living shorelines as a shoreline erosion control because that reflects state law in Virginia. So I want to go really quickly into our ranking for living shorelines. So this is another rank-based tool. We already have a shoreline management model, as I just mentioned, in Virginia, and it's a geospatial analytical model. Again, it uses several biophysical criteria. It develops an output for a recommendation. We have run this tool, as I said, for all of Virginia. We're finishing it for the state of Maryland, and we've done several locales within the Gulf Coast as well. So we've actually and recently published a paper on the outcome or on the process of this model and how it works. So this is a quick screen capture of two locales in Virginia. On the right is Lancaster County, and it shows you just summarizing this. I've taken this data and we've summarized it into just non-structural and plant marsh with sill, which are two of our preferred BMPs that include wetlands restoration or creation. On the right, you can see the whole ramp of options. And you can sort of see from the colors that the majority of Virginia shorelines show up as non-structural, plant marsh with sill, maintained beach, or offshore breakwater. Much of Virginia's shorelines are considered sheltered coasts, and because of fetch limitations, often those areas are identified as suitable for living shorelines. You will also see a little bit of pink where we have highly developed areas. You'll see some of our city areas show up as pink, and then the other one that shows up quite a bit on this map is this lighter pink, which is where SAV and shorelines, where SAV are near to the shore. We have a standard, actually a water quality standard, and to protect SAV preferentially, if you will, over shoreline management options that include creating wetlands. Some of that policy is being explored right now to look for a better balance there. But in the shoreline management model, we have used SAV as a sort of red flag, if you will, and wherever there's SAV, it says seek expert advice. So that's where there's a lot of pink along here. The point of this slide is to basically show, however, that the majority of Virginia's majority of Virginia's tidal shoreline, somewhere upwards of upper 80 to 90%, is suitable for a living shoreline. So there's a lot of potential for marsh creation on Virginia shorelines. So I'm finishing up here. So our ranking factors that we use for the living shoreline ranking, again, we use the water quality. We already had it. And we have previously actually calculated the potential load reduction for if all living shorelines that are suitable in Virginia were implemented. We've calculated an estimated load reduction for a minimal wetland width of 8 feet. We also looked at habitat continuity. If the wetland fills in a gap of existing tidal wetlands, or it touches non-tidal wetlands, it was ranked high, medium if it's next to wooded, beach, or dune. Again, the benefits for buildings and the benefits for vulnerable communities. Now, this is a social vulnerability analysis that was done by Sarah Stafford at William Mary that we also serve on adaptvirginia.com. And if the living shoreline was going to be in a socially vulnerable ranked high community, it would rank high for living shoreline. This slide here, again, is the Hampton River. So it's the same section that I showed for the NNBF project. And in this case, we've built the viewer in a very similar way. And you can see now that this is a screen grab from Adapt Virginia. You can see the bottom tabs. The protection restoration bucket is the one that's turned on. And the area suitable for living shorelines. And again, we show you what the ranking benefit is for the one I've selected. And the one I've selected is highlighted kind of right in the middle of the screen above the where the two bridges connect. It's got a little pale blue highlight around it. This is a fairly long continuous piece of shoreline that is suitable for living shoreline, almost 1,200 linear feet. We've again estimated a creation project of 8 feet wide, and then it shows you the benefits that would be derived from that living shoreline implemented in that location. So finally, this is my last slide. I'm showing both of the projects together. So you can see the orange is the targets. The blue is the living shoreline suitability. And you can see where those two things crosswalk. So where we have an NNBF target that could be a living shoreline, we've pulled that out and shown people that. And we use the shoreline because we consider it to be the first line of defense. If you build a natural nature-based feature along the shoreline, you're most likely to be eligible for those programmatic benefits I mentioned before. So you're going to be in the floodplain likely, and you're going to be along the shoreline for the TMDL, Chesapeake Bay Program BMPs. And we have a shoreline management model that helps direct the preferred approach for that option. And that's the end of my slides.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pam.